It was a bright Monday morning at Technova Engineering Company. Everyone in the office was rushing around with files, laptops, and coffee mugs. The air was filled with the sound of typing, phone calls, and conversations about deadlines. In the middle of this busy atmosphere sat Daniel, senior engineer with 6 years of experience. He was known for his sharp mind, but also for his sharp tongue. Daniel believed he was the smartest man in the room. He had a habit of judging people quickly, especially those who didn't look or talk like him. That morning, an announcement came from the HR department. Everyone, please gather in the conference hall at 10 a.m. for a special introduction. People started whispering, maybe a new manager? A new project leader? Daniel smirked. Another newbie trying to lead us, he said to his colleague. Rolling his eyes at 10 a.m., the conference room was full. Everyone sat waiting. The door opened, and a tall, calm man walked in wearing a simple black suit. His name was Mr. Michael Brown. He had a warm smile, confident posture, and an energy that filled the room, but his skin color immediately caught Daniel's attention. Daniel leaned toward his friend and whispered, "This guy? He looks like he doesn't belong here. Maybe he's the new janitor." The HR manager introduced him with a big smile. "Everyone, meet Mr. Michael Brown. He'll be working closely with our engineering department. Please make him feel welcome." There was a short silence. No one mentioned his role clearly. People clapped politely, but Daniel just gave a fake smile. After the meeting, Michael walked over to the engineering desk, extending his hand to Daniel. "Hi, I'm Michael. Looking forward to working with you?" Daniel barely shook his hand. "Yeah, sure. If you can keep up," Daniel said sarcastically. Michael only smiled. "I'll do my best." For the next few days, Daniel kept showing his arrogance. Whenever Michael asked a question, Daniel rolled his eyes. "You don't understand this? It's basic stuff," he said loudly, so others could hear. People in the office laughed quietly. Not because it was funny, but because they didn't want to be on Daniel's bad side. Michael stayed calm every time. He never argued, never raised his voice. He simply observed, learned, and smiled. One day, company announced a big engineering project worth millions of dollars. The CEO himself was coming to the office for a special meeting. Daniel, of course, was excited. "This is my chance to show how smart I am," he told everyone. That morning, Michael was also in the meeting room early, arranging some documents. Daniel laughed. "Hey, Michael, don't touch those files. You might mess something up," Michael replied softly. "Don't worry, Daniel. I think I know what I'm doing." Daniel chuckled again. "Sure you do." Minutes later, the main door opened. Everyone stood up. The CEO of Technova entered. Everyone expected an old white man in a fancy suit. But to everyone's shock, the CEO was none other than Mr. Michael Brown himself. The room went silent. Daniel's smile disappeared. His eyes widened. He felt his knees weaken as the truth hit him. Michael walked straight to the front, placed his file on the table, and looked around the room. His calm voice filled the space. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Brown, the CEO of Technova Engineering. I've been observing the work culture here for a few weeks, and I've seen both talent and ego." All eyes slowly turned toward Daniel. His face turned pale. He wanted to disappear. Michael paused for a moment, then said, "Respect is not about title, color, or position. It's about character." The silence was heavier than ever. Everyone felt it. And Daniel, who had mocked the man again and again, knew this was only the beginning of his downfall. The room was filled with shock. No one could believe that the quiet man Daniel had been mocking was actually the CEO. For a few seconds, there was only silence. Everyone looked from Michael to Daniel. Waiting for what would happen next, Michael took a slow breath, his calm voice steady and firm. "I joined this company quietly to see how my people work, how they treat each other, and how they behave when they think no one is watching." He looked directly at Daniel for a brief moment, then continued, "I've seen great teamwork from many of you, but I've also seen disrespect, arrogance, and lack of empathy." Daniel's heart started racing. His throat went dry. He wanted to speak, to explain himself, but his words froze inside him. Everyone could see the sweat forming on his forehead. Michael opened his file and placed a few printed pages on the table. I believe real leadership is not about power. It's about respect. You can't expect to lead if you can't respect the people around you. The HR manager and a few senior engineers nodded quietly. They knew exactly what Michael was talking about. Daniel's behavior wasn't new. He had been rude to interns, technicians, and even other engineers before, but no one had ever stood up to him until now. Michael then asked everyone to sit. Let's start the meeting properly, he said. The presentation began. It was about the company's new innovation project, a massive upgrade to one of their core products. Michael explained the vision clearly, using simple words that made even the interns understand the idea. He spoke with confidence and clarity, something Daniel had never managed to do. Despite his intelligence as Michael spoke, Daniel couldn't stop thinking, how could this happen? How could I humiliate the CEO himself? He remembered every word he had said, every sarcastic smile, every laugh behind Michael's back. Each memory felt like a knife in his chest. When the presentation ended, Michael turned to Daniel. Daniel, he said calmly, you've been with this company for 6 years, right? Daniel swallowed hard. Yes, sir, he replied softly. You're talented, Michael said. But tell me, what do you think is more important, knowledge or respect? The question hit Daniel like a thunderbolt. Everyone in the room waited for his answer. He looked down, avoiding Michael's eyes. Respect, sir, he whispered. Michael nodded slowly. I'm glad you said that. But respect means nothing unless you show it through your actions. The tension in the room grew heavy again. Michael looked around at everyone and said, I've seen Daniel mock a colleague for asking questions. I've seen him insult someone because of their accent. And yes, I've seen how he treated me before he knew who I was. A few people gasped. The truth was out now, loud and clear. Daniel's face turned red. He tried to say something, but Michael raised his hand gently. You don't need to explain. I didn't come here to embarrass you, Daniel. I came here to teach a lesson to everyone. Michael walked closer to the team. In this company, we don't judge by color, background, or position. We judge by attitude, hard work, and kindness. The room broke into a quiet silence again. Everyone felt the weight of those words. Michael then turned to HR. Please schedule a meeting with Daniel after this. We'll review his behavior and decide the next steps. Daniel lowered his head. He knew what that meant. He had crossed a line that could not be repaired with words. After the meeting, people whispered in the hallway. Some said Daniel might be fired. Others said he deserved a second chance. But everyone agreed on one thing. Michael Brown had just shown what true leadership looked like. As Michael walked out of the conference room, Daniel stood frozen at his seat, watching him go. For the first time in years, Daniel felt small not because of someone's title, but because of his own actions. He realized the truth too late. Sometimes, the person you look down on might be standing higher than you'll ever reach. The meeting ended, but the tension didn't. The echo of Michael's words stayed in everyone's minds. Employees quietly returned to their desks, pretending to work, yet their thoughts were far away. The silence of the office was louder than ever before. Daniel sat alone in the conference room long after everyone had left. His hands trembled slightly as he looked at the empty chair where Michael had sat moments ago. He could still hear that calm voice in his head. Respect means nothing unless you show it through your actions. For the first time in his career, Daniel didn't feel proud of his experience or his knowledge. He felt small, lost, and ashamed. The man he had insulted, the one he thought was beneath him, turned out to be the very leader he had been trying to impress his whole life. As he stared at the floor, the HR manager, Miss Karen, entered the room quietly. Daniel, the CEO, has asked to meet you in his office in an hour, she said softly. Daniel nodded without looking up. Thank you, he whispered. He spent the next hour sitting alone, replaying every mistake. Every joke, every insult, every moment of pride now looked foolish. He realized he hadn't just disrespected Michael. He had disrespected the values of the company and himself. When the clock struck 3, Daniel stood outside Michael's office. His heart pounded like a drum. He took a deep breath and knocked on the door. "Come in," a calm voice said. Michael was sitting behind his desk, reading a document. The sunlight from the window fell across his face, making him look peaceful yet powerful. Daniel stepped inside slowly, feeling the weight of guilt on his shoulders. "Please have a seat," Michael said, without looking up. Daniel sat down quietly, unable to meet his eyes. After a moment of silence, Michael spoke. "Daniel, I'm not here to destroy your career. I'm here to help you understand something important." Daniel finally looked up, surprised. "Sir, I know what I did was wrong. I was arrogant and I disrespected you. I don't have any excuse." Michael nodded gently. "You know, Daniel, when I started my journey, people judged me too. They didn't see my skills, only my color. But I decided to rise above their hate and prove myself through my work." He paused, looking directly into Daniel's eyes. "When you humiliated me, I didn't get angry. I wanted to see if you could realize your mistake before it was too late." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "I'm truly sorry, sir. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I thought I was better than others." Michael leaned back in his chair. "Ego blinds even the smartest man, Daniel. But it's never too late to change. What matters now is what you do next." Daniel nodded slowly. "Please, give me a chance to make things right." Michael studied him for a moment, then said, "I will give you one, but not in the same way. You'll start by training the new interns. Teach them, help them, and show them the respect you failed to give before." Daniel was stunned. He had expected to be fired, not given another chance. You still trust me with that?" Michael smiled slightly. "Trust is earned, not given. Earn it back, Daniel. Show me that you can be more than your ego." Daniel nodded firmly, tears now rolling down his cheeks. "I will, sir. I promise." Michael stood up and extended his hand. "Then let's begin again." Daniel shook his hand, this time with real respect and humility. For the first time in years, he felt like a student again, ready to learn, ready to grow. As he walked out of the office, the burden on his chest felt lighter. The whispers of his colleagues no longer mattered. All that mattered now was proving himself not by words, but by actions. He realized something powerful that day. Knowledge can make you successful, but respect makes you unforgettable. The next morning, Daniel walked into the office earlier than usual. The sun had just begun to rise, and the light through the glass walls painted everything golden. He took a deep breath, determined to start again. The HR manager greeted him kindly. "Good morning, Daniel. The new interns are waiting for you in the training room." Daniel nodded nervously. He had handled big projects, but this training interns felt different. It wasn't about machines or designs. It was about people. He walked into the room where 5 young interns sat. They looked excited and nervous, whispering among themselves. When Daniel entered, they quickly stood up. "Good morning, sir," one of them said. Daniel smiled slightly. It felt strange to be treated with respect after what had happened, but he wanted to earn it this time. "Good morning. Please, sit down. My name is Daniel, and I'll be guiding you through your first project." He started explaining the basics of engineering design, but unlike before, he didn't raise his voice or show off his knowledge. He spoke slowly, carefully, making sure everyone understood. At first, the interns were shy. They hesitated to ask questions. Daniel noticed it and said, "There are no stupid questions. I used to think there were, but I was wrong. Ask anything you don't understand." The atmosphere softened. One by one, they began asking questions. Daniel answered patiently. For the first time, he felt the satisfaction of teaching instead of showing off. Across the hallway, Michael watched through the glass window. He didn't say anything, just observed quietly. He wanted to see if Daniel's words matched his actions. During the next few weeks, Daniel worked closely with the interns. He taught them not just about machines, but also about teamwork and respect. When they made mistakes, he didn't scold them. He helped them fix their errors. One day, one of the interns, Sarah, accidentally deleted an important file from the system. She was terrified. Tears filled her eyes as she ran to Daniel's desk. "Sir, I deleted the design file by mistake. I'm so sorry." "I didn't mean to." Daniel remembered how he would have reacted before, angry, loud, full of pride. But this time, he smiled gently. "It's okay, Sarah. Mistakes happen. Let's fix it together." They spent hours rebuilding the file. The interns were amazed by Daniel's patience. Later that evening, as Daniel walked out of the office, he saw Michael standing near the elevator. "Good work today," Michael said. Daniel stopped, surprised. "You saw that?" Michael smiled. "I see more than you think." Daniel looked down, embarrassed but grateful. "I'm trying, sir." "I really am, can tell," Michael replied. "Change doesn't happen in one day, but every good choice you make builds a better man." Daniel nodded silently. Those words stayed with him for days. By the end of the month, interns finished their first group project, a small prototype for an energy-efficient motor. When they presented it to the department, everyone was impressed. The design was smart, creative, and well executed. After the presentation, Michael walked to the front and said, "This project shows teamwork, learning, and humility. Daniel, I'm proud of how you led them." The entire room clapped. Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years. Real pride, not from ego, but from effort and growth. Later that night, Daniel stayed alone in the office, looking at the empty desks. He thought about the man he used to be, the arrogant engineer who looked down on others, and he smiled sadly. He didn't want to be that man again. As he packed his bag, he saw Michael walking by. "Heading home, Daniel?" "Yes, sir," Daniel said. "But before I go, thank you for giving me a second chance." Michael nodded warmly. "Everyone deserves one. You just had the courage to use it." Daniel walked out into the night, the city lights shining bright around him. He felt peace inside his heart. He had failed as an engineer of machines, but he was finally learning to be an engineer of respect, humility, and change. 2 months passed since Daniel began training the interns. The office had changed. People noticed that Daniel no longer walked with arrogance or spoke with pride. He listened more, helped more, and even smiled more often. The same people who once avoided him now enjoyed working with him, but true change is never complete until it's tested. And Daniel's biggest test was about to begin. One morning, the company received a large project from an international client. It was urgent, something that could bring millions in revenue if delivered on time. The CEO, Michael, called a meeting with all senior engineers. "This project must be perfect," Michael said. "We have only 3 weeks. Daniel, I'm trusting you to lead this one. I believe you're ready." Daniel felt both honored and nervous. It was a big responsibility. He looked around and saw the faces of his team and the interns he had trained. He couldn't let them down. The first few days went well. The team worked hard, and Daniel guided everyone calmly. He made sure every voice was heard, every suggestion respected. But things soon began to go wrong. One afternoon, just a week before the deadline, a serious problem appeared in their design. A system failure caused the main model to malfunction, erasing several days of progress. Panic spread across the department. Everyone turned to Daniel for instructions. His old self would have exploded in anger, shouting and blaming others. But this time, he took a deep breath. "Okay," he said softly. "We can fix this. Don't panic. Let's work together." However, not everyone trusted his calmness. Ryan, another senior engineer, crossed his arms and said loudly, "This is happening because you put interns in charge of key sections. You're trying too hard to play nice. That's not leadership. Daniel, it's weakness." The room went quiet. The words stung, but Daniel stayed composed. "Ryan, everyone here worked hard. We all make mistakes. I won't blame anyone. Let's find the problem and fix it." Ryan shook his head, smirking. "You've changed too much. Maybe you've lost your edge." Daniel ignored him and went back to work. For hours, the team rebuilt the system, testing every wire and code. The interns stayed late, their eyes tired but full of trust. Daniel worked beside them, not above them. As the night grew long, Michael silently entered the lab. He didn't speak, he just observed from a distance. He saw Daniel encouraging the interns, helping them debug errors, sharing pizza to keep them awake. Not once did he raise his voice. Not once did he give up. By sunrise, the system was finally working again. The entire team cheered. Sarah, the intern, looked at Daniel with a bright smile. "Sir, we did it." Daniel smiled back, exhausted but proud. "No, you did it. We all did it together." Michael stepped forward, clapping his hands softly. "Impressive work, everyone." Everyone turned, surprised to see him there. Daniel quickly stood up. "Sir, I didn't know you were watching." Michael nodded. "I wanted to see how you handle a storm." Anyone can lead when the sea is calm, Daniel. But real leaders show up when the waves rise. Daniel felt his throat tighten. "I tried my best, sir." Michael smiled. "You didn't just try, you succeeded. You proved that change isn't about words. It's about action under pressure." The whole team clapped again. Even Ryan looked down, ashamed of his earlier words. As the day ended, Daniel stood by the office window, watching the sunrise paint the city in golden light. He thought about how far he had come from a proud engineer who mocked others to a humble leader who listened and learned. He whispered to himself, "Respect is not something you demand. It's something you earn." Passing by, overheard him and smiled quietly. "And you've earned it well." "Daniel," he said. Daniel turned, surprised. But Michael had already walked away, leaving behind a man who had finally understood what true success really meant. Weeks passed since the big project's success. Teknova Engineering had gained a strong reputation, and the client praised their work publicly. Inside the company, everyone celebrated. But the biggest change wasn't the company's success. It was Daniel himself. He was no longer the man who measured respect by titles or experience. He treated everyone equally, whether it was the janitor, the receptionist, or the CEO. His eyes now carried humility instead of pride. One morning, Daniel was called to the CEO's office once again. This time, there was no fear in his heart, only curiosity. He knocked softly and entered. "Good morning, sir," Daniel said with a polite smile. Michael looked up from his papers and smiled back. "Good morning, Daniel. Come, sit down." Daniel sat across from him, feeling calm. Michael leaned back in his chair. "You've come a long way," he began. "When I first met you, I saw a man full of talent, but also full of ego. Now I see a man full of strength and wisdom." Daniel lowered his eyes slightly, humbled. "Thank you, sir. I had to lose my pride to find myself." Michael chuckled softly. "That's the right way to put it. You know, Daniel, leadership isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about helping others become smarter. You've done that." Daniel smiled, remembering the interns. "They taught me more than I taught them." Michael nodded. "That's how real growth works." There was a short pause before Michael continued. "I'm promoting you, Daniel. You'll now lead our new development unit. But this time I want you to build not just machines, but people." Daniel was stunned. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll keep learning," Michael replied with a grin. Daniel nodded with emotion in his voice. "I promise." The next few months turned out to be the best of Daniel's career. He led his team with kindness and patience. He made sure every voice was heard, even from the quietest person in the room. Whenever conflict appeared, he resolved it calmly. One afternoon, while walking through the office, Daniel noticed a young cleaner struggling to lift a heavy trash bin. Without a second thought, he walked over and helped. The cleaner looked surprised. "Sir, you don't have to," Daniel interrupted with a smile. "We're all part of the same team." That moment, a few employees watched from a distance. They whispered among themselves, remembering the old Daniel who once ignored people like that. Now they saw a leader who led by example. Later that evening, Michael saw Daniel helping the cleaner and smiled silently. He didn't say anything he didn't need to. His lesson had already taken root. Weeks later, Teknova held a company event. The hall was filled with laughter and music. When it was time for speeches, Michael took the stage first. "This company has achieved great things," he said. But our biggest success isn't the projects or profits. It's the people who grow and change for the better. Ash! He turned toward Daniel. And today, I want to recognize someone who showed that real strength lies in humility. Everyone clapped loudly as Daniel stood up, embarrassed but proud. Michael handed him a small trophy that read, True Leadership Award. Michael whispered as he handed it over, This isn't for being perfect, Daniel. It's for becoming better. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, sir. You believed in me when I didn't deserve it, Michael smiled. That's what leaders do. They see potential, not perfection. As the crowd applauded, Daniel looked around the room. He saw the interns, his colleagues, even the janitors smiling at him. It wasn't fame or money that filled his heart. It was respect. Real, earned respect. That night, as Daniel walked out of the building under the soft city lights, he looked up at the stars. His reflection shone faintly on the glass door of Technova, and for the first time, he truly liked the man staring back. He whispered to himself, The man I once looked down on became the man who lifted me up. And somewhere deep inside, he knew this was not just the end of a story, it was the beginning of a new kind of success. One built on humility, kindness, and respect.